These three brothers cater to the unusual, the very unusual. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Bored with the same old stuff for dinner every night? Well, how about trying some rattlesnake stew? Or perhaps a hippopotamus steak or peacock would whet your appetite. Then you should head straight for the Czimer Foods in Lockport, Illinois, a small store that specializes in exotic meats and game. The owners of this highly unusual butcher shop are three brothers, Arthur, Richard, and Rudy Czimer, all by now in their 60s. They report that there's a healthy demand for their fantastic fare. They supply hotels and restaurants all across the country, as well as wild food gourmets like showbiz personality Carol Channing, who's allergic to certain chemicals found in domestic meat. And just what are you likely to find on a regular day in the Czimer front glass case? Well, there are bear loins at $6.95 a pound, wild hare and snapping turtle in the $3 to $4 range per pound, or you might eye some buffalo steak, elk sirloin, or elephant. According to Brother Arthur, each animal has a different taste, and they should know. The Czimer family has been sampling all sorts of strange foods since way back in 1914. Now, here's a tip for people who want something different, but not so different. In a 2.5-quart pitcher, combine 5 tablespoons of Nestea Instant 100% tea, a quarter cup of sugar, 1 6-ounce can of limeade concentrate, and a quarter cup of water. Stir and add 3 cans of club soda. When all this is done, serve it to your friends over ice. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen saying thanks and goodbye. The blues don't make her sad, far from it. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Most of us think of the music known as the blues as being sad and melancholy. We remember the great blues singers of the past as victims of unhappy circumstances, most of them women whose men done them wrong. Not so, says a New York writer named Rosetta Reitz. The music we call the blues, she says, actually covered the whole spectrum of life, and many of the women who sang the blues were tough and independent and proud, in short, true survivors. Believing that blues is to jazz what yeast is to bread, Rosetta Reitz is devoting herself these days to searching out the women who made the 20s the golden era of the blues and in the process contributed greatly to America's musical heritage. Bessie Smith, the first woman to record the blues, is no longer alive, but Reitz discovered that many of the other early blues greats are still going strong. Sippy Wallace, for instance, a wisp of a woman with a powerful voice, is among the oldest living blues singers still performing. When Rosetta Reitz gathered a group of the veterans together for a special concert of Newport Jazz Festival in New York City, Sippy sang a song called Hard Boiled Mama. That's one she wrote back in 1925, and she earned a standing ovation. Nothing melancholy at all about that. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 2.5-quart pitcher, combine 5 tablespoons of Nestea 100% tea, quarter cup of sugar, 6-ounce can of limeade concentrate, quarter cup of water. Stir well, add 3 12-ounce bottles of club soda, freeze until slushy, and serve. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen saying thanks and goodbye. He searches out buildings that look like animals and people. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Charles Jencks is a highly respected professor of architecture who commutes between classrooms at UCLA and the Architectural Association in London. When Professor Jencks is not lecturing or writing, he's out scouting the contemporary landscape for buildings that look like people, buildings that look like animals, buildings of all kinds that are, as he puts it, not merely unlikely or unconventional, but downright bizarre. He has now collected photographs of 64 such buildings in a book called, fittingly, Bizarre Architecture. One of his pets is a building on the outskirts of Los Angeles shaped like a dinosaur. It functions as a shop selling curios, and that's typical of one whole category of Charles Jencks' offbeat collection, buildings that serve to advertise something. Another is a building shaped like a shoe. It houses a shoe repair shop, but the old nursery rhyme woman with so many children would have felt right at home in it. Charles Jencks also enjoys looking for houses that look like faces. With time and understanding, he says, many strange-seeming buildings are later accepted as perfectly valid extensions of tradition. Say, here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 1-quart pitcher, combine a 1/4 cup of Nestea iced tea mix and 2 cups of water. Mix and stir in 1 12-ounce can of orange-flavored carbonated beverage. Pour into glasses and top each with a scoop of orange sherbet. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen saying thanks and goodbye. She moves audiences in every sense of the word. Hi, it's Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Time was when women stage directors were a comparatively rarity in the theater. Well, now that situation has changed a bit, and more playbills are beginning to show women's names in the director's spot. But a young woman stage director named Bogart is still a rarity, where the traditional director, male or female, moves scenery to denote a change of mood or place, and Bogart moves the entire audience. For one Bogart production, audience members were asked to gather in front of an out-of-the-way New York restaurant and watch for a man with a red van, who then drove everybody to a townhouse to see the play. It took place in various rooms within the house. For another play, the audience was led into a factory building and told to look out the window. The action was on the street below. The director feels that thrusting her audiences into unexpected environments sharpens their sense of participation in the dramas she presents. It all seems to work, too. Whatever anyone feels about the quality of the plays, there is no question but that plodding from place to see them is a very moving experience. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 2.5-quart pitcher, combine 4 cups of water, 6 tablespoons of Nestea iced tea mix, 6 tablespoons of honey, a 1/2 cup of orange juice, and 1.5 teaspoons of almond extract. Stir and blend in 2 cups of ginger ale and serve over ice. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, thank you and goodbye. He brought the ancient art of firewalking into the 20th century. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Firewalking is a practice dating from great antiquity. The Roman writers Virgil and Pliny gave accounts of ember walks 2,000 years ago. In the not-so-distant past, ritual firewalking was common in China and Japan, and it's still practiced in parts of India and Malaysia. But here in the U.S., well, that's what makes Mayne R Coe different. He practices this ancient ritual here and now. The firewalk traditionally takes place along the length of a wide trench filled with red-hot embers, and in most respects, Coe follows tradition. He walks over a fiery pit 30 feet long and 8 inches deep. It takes him approximately 60 steps to cross this pit, which is burning at around 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit. Coe's only bow to modern convenience is to use commercial charcoal briquettes not available to the ancients. Why doesn't he get burned? Well, scientists have been trying to figure this out for years, but he explained it this way in an article in Fate magazine. When the charcoal is really hot, if air is excluded, the charcoal is immediately extinguished. Walking on coals in this condition cuts off oxygen at the point of contact and momentarily extinguishes the radiant glow. That's easy for him to say. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 1-quart pitcher, combine 3 cups of boiling water, 6 tablespoons of sugar, and a 1/4 cup of Nestea lemon flavor instant tea. Serve hot in mugs garnished with lemon slices. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till Monday, Bill Cullen saying thank you and goodbye. Paralysis is no obstacle to this courageous soprano. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. As a happy toddler, Irene Gubrud sang opera arias along with a kitchen radio in her hometown of Canby, Minnesota. But at age 13, she was thrown to the concrete when her safety belt on a fair ride snapped, an accident which left her paralyzed from the waist down and confined to a wheelchair. Within 6 months of the accident, however, Irene had learned to play the flute and won a statewide competition. From then on, she decided that although she was handicapped, she did not have to be crippled. Later, while attending college, her music professors advised her to concentrate on voice studies. She did, and her remarkable talent soon took her to the famed Carnegie Recital Hall in New York. Subsequent victories in singing competitions led to her first professional engagements. In 1972, she won a scholarship and a chance to tour with the Metropolitan Opera. But Irene decided instead to go to Chicago to work with an aeronautic engineer who had devised a therapy program of exercise and meditation. After 3 years, she was able to walk unaided to center stage while appearing as soloist with the Minnesota Orchestra. That triumph confirmed what audiences at her concert performances with the Chicago Symphony, New York Philharmonic, and Philadelphia orchestras already knew, that Irene Gubrud ranks among today's finest and bravest singers. Now here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 3-quart punch bowl, combine 4 cups of cranberry juice, 4 cups of water, 1 cup of Nestea iced tea mix, and 3/4 of a cup of lime juice. Mix well and add ice just before serving. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen, thank you. Goodbye. What's the transportation of the future? Roller skating, according to coast-to-coast marathoner Ted Coombs. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Ted Coombs strapped on his skates and glided his way from Los Angeles to New York. Then he turned around and started back again. Even at 25 years of age, that's a lot of roller skating. He headed due east toward New York. Even though he was accompanied by a van carrying water and supplies, it wasn't easy. I almost gave up in the desert, he admits. Coombs' feet blistered and his knees began to shake a lot, but he kept on skating. In El Paso, Texas, he decided to lay over for 2 days before he started again. He averaged 50 miles a day all the way across the country. Indiana was his favorite state. For one simple reason, it's flat, very flat, all the way. Neither rain nor cold nor even a few rattlesnakes that slithered across the road discouraged him, but he did learn to be cautious. Your mind can wander, and that's not a good idea, he says. You've got to watch the road constantly. In New Jersey, he was robbed at gunpoint, and in Missouri, he was pursued by a pack of vicious dogs. Then in Yates Center, Kansas, all that skating finally just got to him. Still, he'd covered some 5,000 miles, and he felt he'd made his point. He still feels that if you really want to go someplace, the best way to get there is on skates. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a 2.5-quart pitcher, combine 4 cups of water, 6 tablespoons of Nestea iced tea mix, 6 tablespoons of honey, a 1/2 cup of orange juice, and 1.5 teaspoons of almond extract. Blend in 2 cups of ginger ale and serve over ice. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen saying thanks and goodbye. She gave art lessons to an elephant. Hello, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% Pure Tea, and Nestea Iced Tea Mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Joan Embery is a young California blonde who, in the course of the past 10 years, has made guest appearances on some of TV's top shows. She's not a singer, not a dancer, doesn't play a musical instrument, and she doesn't tell jokes. So how come she's in such great demand as a TV guest? Because of her talent at making friends with creatures from the wild. The creatures come from San Diego's world-famous zoo, and Joan Embery's job is the Zoo Goodwill Ambassador. As such, she escorts the zoo's most exotic animals whenever they venture outside to make public appearances. In a book entitled My Wild World, Joan Embery explains that her association with animals started when she was just 18, working in the San Diego's Children's Zoo. Now, what probably ranks as Joan's proudest accomplishment was teaching a young elephant named Carol to paint by wielding a brush in her trunk. The paintings sold for $100 apiece to raise money for the zoo's wild animal park. As a result of a single one-elephant show, the zoo earned several $1,000s. Now, does Joan ever get tired of being around animals? Not by a long shot. She likes them at home, too. Her own personal menagerie includes 2 horses, a Great Dane, a pig, 3 ponies, 2 pygmy goats, a parrot, a parakeet, and an ever-growing number of cats. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a tall glass, combine 1 tablespoon of Nestea 100% tea and 2 tablespoons of sugar. Stir in 2 tablespoons of cold water and a 1/4 cup of orange juice. Fill the glass with club soda and add ice. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% Pure Tea and Nestea Iced Tea Mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen, goodbye. Looking for a different kind of vacation? How about hitting the Kit Carson Trail with Wagon Master Dean Calkins? Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% Pure Tea and Nestea Iced Tea Mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Dean Calkins claims he's never had a single accident, and he's never lost anyone to an Indian raid either. That's pretty good, since Dean's been in the rent-a-wagon business for years. That's right, you too can ride the route of the early pioneers who crossed the wilderness some 100 years ago. You'll travel by horse-drawn wagon 60 miles from Fallon to Carson City across the Nevada desert. For those early pioneers, it was a pretty hazardous journey. It's a trip complete with authentically reproduced covered wagons with genuine wooden wheels to make sure you don't miss one historical bump along the way. The food is definitely not gourmet, but it's wholesome and healthy, and there's plenty of it. The journey begins at a barbecue at Wagon Master Dean Calkins' C-Bar D Ranch in Fallon. From that point on, the timetable is all up to the elements. Calkins is one of those men who, by his own admission, could never stand to punch a time clock. His vacation package along the Kit Carson Trail attracts all kind of people. Some modern-day pioneers have made the trip with him 7 times, a truly impressive recommendation. Hey, here's a tip for people who want something different. In a tall glass, combine 1 tablespoon of Nestea Instant 100% tea, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 2 cups of water. Mix and add 1 scoop of lemon sherbet. Slowly pour in 3/4 of a cup of club soda and serve with a long spoon and a straw. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% Pure Tea and Nestea Iced Tea Mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till tomorrow, Bill Cullen saying thanks and goodbye. She turned grandmothering into a profession. Hi, this is Bill Cullen with another edition of People Who Are Different. This program is brought to you by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% Pure Tea and Nestea Iced Tea Mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. A century or so ago, when Thanksgiving Day rolled around, American families customarily packed up and, in the words of the old song, went over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house. Well, with families and generations now often widely separated, that doesn't happen so often, which is how and why Mrs. Lanie Carter of La Jolla, California, has found a busy career for herself as a grandmother, not just during the Thanksgiving season, but all year round. The base for Mrs. Carter's grandmotherly ministrations is La Jolla's Scripps Memorial Hospital. Her official title is Family Care Coordinator, but the hospital authorities prefer to characterize her as the nation's first and only professional grandmother. The duties she performs are those, basically, that might have been done by Grandma back in those over the river and through the woods days, counseling new parents on everything but medical problems. After helping with the early nurturing of more than 6,000 babies, the professional granny has come to the conclusion that today's parents are more educated about child care than parents of the past, but less experienced. Many of the new mothers, she says, have never even held a baby and don't know how to go about changing it. Here's a tip for people who want something different. In a small saucepan, combine 2 cups of water, 4 cinnamon sticks, and 6 cardamom seeds. Boil for 2 minutes. Remove from heat, mix in 3 tablespoons of Nestea light iced tea mix, and serve in heat-proof mugs. People Who Are Different has been furnished by Nestle, makers of Nestea 100% pure tea and Nestea iced tea mixes. The great taste of Nestea is good anytime. Till Monday, Bill Cullen saying thank you and goodbye. Want to hear about people who are getting a lot of fun out of life? Listen to me, Bill Cullen, with our People Who Are Different series on this station.